Welcome to the Momentum Podcast, where we feature founders and industry leaders who are bold, brilliant, and built to last. I'm Theresa Bassett, author, speaker, and CEO of the Diamond Group, an SMB sales and marketing agency. I'm here to share real stories and strategies from founders and leaders breaking through to their next level. I love helping small businesses grow. My mission: to help entrepreneurs just like you build sustainable, scalable businesses that align with your purpose and create lasting impact. On this show, we sit down with small business owners, growth stage founders, and change makers who are navigating the messy middle of scaling. Episodes typically run about 30 to 40 minutes, packed with insights, practical takeaways, and raw conversations. Let's get into it. Cool. Well, welcome back to all our listeners. The Momentum Podcast is fairly new on the scene, but I am super excited about our guest today, Jerry, with the Kronos Group. I'm excited, Jerry, to learn about your story today. I know our listeners have a lot to learn from you, and I just can't wait to get into it. So tell us a little bit about what you do, Jerry, what fires you up in the morning, and how you got here. That's a loaded question.
Sure. Yeah. And I think to know my story and to know me, you got to go back to the beginning for me. And so the important kind of where I come from is my mother had 6 kids when she was 23 years old. So she brought home an infant, and at home she had a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-old. 6 kids under the age 5 years and under, if you can imagine.
Oh my
And
goodness.
can you imagine? And 7 years later, she had me, and then didn't want me to be the only child. So I have a little brother and a little sister. My dad was gone for so much of the time. My mother was by herself, and she slept every other day for a decade while she was raising those kids. No washer, no dryer, kids in cloth diapers, the whole 9 yards, abject poverty, very poor. And the thing about my mother, she's still alive, 87 years old, still kicking, is that she never complained. She never said a word. And so as we lived through this life that we had, and the older kids and the younger kids, I never saw my mother complain. And so that was really a great example and inspiration for me as I went throughout life. And really the basis of my business experience and my life experience is kind of that foundation that my mother set underneath me that kind of showed me how to approach life. And so I grew up very, very difficult, abject poverty. I've been beaten, I've been stabbed, I've been shot at. I've had a life as a child that most people could not even imagine. But in that, I lived with hookers and heroin addicts when I was 17 years old in a $25 a week flop house. I got my first job. My little brother and I used to steal food. Now, remember, I'm number 7, and I have 6 older brothers and sisters. And so food was scarce, and my mother would have to hide it away just so enough would get back to us little kids at the time. And so my brother and I became, really Lord of the Flies kind of program where we figured out how to survive by stealing food and doing all of these things. Oh yeah, you learn very quickly how to make do. A very different time too than today. It was 1970s when I grew up, and the world was a very different place than the world we have today. So things weren't so prevalent, and the ability to get your hands on things like food was a completely different program. So we would figure all that out. We had secret coats and with pockets in them and all that kind of stuff, so that we could steal food as we needed to. But I got a job as an 11-year-old. The local restaurant gave me a job washing dishes Saturday morning, 6 o'clock, paid me $2.35 an hour. And I would take that check at the end of the day, coincidentally, $17.33. I remember it very well. And I would cash it for $1 bills. So I had a big wad of ones that made me look like I was rich, like the guys on TV. But what that job taught me was what happened at the end of my first day. The first meal I ever ate at a restaurant came from that restaurant I worked the day at in order to make money. And they gave me a free meal. And I got a club sandwich. And, the club sandwich, they cut it in
felt like a king.
Oh, they cut it in 4 pieces with a giant thing of fries, and I don't have to worry about my brothers and sisters stealing it, and I got to squirrel it away. Because they would eat everything I ever got. So, it was just really always fighting for it. But this time I'm at this restaurant. I would have worked all day for that meal. Forget about the money that they paid me. I would have worked all day for that meal. And so in that context, what happened is food and work became synonymous with each other. And when food and work became synonymous with each other, then that was really my approach the rest of my life to how I worked. I'm 56 years old. I've never missed a day of work sick. I've been sick and I've gone to work. I've missed work because I took days off, but I've never missed a day of work sick because that just stuck in my head. I have 3 kids and they missed 4 days of school amongst them because throughout their entire schooling, because I would say, are you so sick that you can't eat? That at the end of the day, if you don't go out and earn, you're not going to be able to afford food. And that was always just my approach. So as I built businesses and started to figure out how things worked, as I was working my way up off of the street, always with that my mother's example in my head, and also that work ethic that got put together at 11 years old. Coincidentally, that was 1980. I paid taxes. I've never not had a job, and I've never not paid taxes since 1980 as an 11-year-old.
Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh, Jerry, there's so much in that story. What I hear you saying is that the groundwork was laid in your youth for your approach to life and to work years before I
Yes.
mean, this the groundwork was laid really for your perspective for your entire life.
Yes, that's right. I had a at when I was 13 years old, my next oldest sister, who was really like my mother, she was 21. On her 21st birthday, she died. On her 21st birthday, had a thing go wrong with her heart, and she died. And so, 4 or 5 months later, I went blind in my right eye and almost lost my vision in my left eye as I turned 14 years old. My vision goes out, and so in that context, that was my year. In August of that year, I had gone to a bank and got some money out. Again, I had a bank card, which was a big deal to a 14-year-old in 1983. And I took money out, and I took $80 out. I remember very specifically. I had 85 in there, and I took 80 out. You always had to leave $5. I don't even know if you have to do that anymore. We had to leave $5 in there, and I turned around and 4 guys jumped me. Now I'm a street kid. I know the rules, but I wasn't paying attention, and they jumped me, and they broke my nose, and they broke 2 ribs, and they put a beating on me pretty good, and rolled me unconscious underneath of a bus stop. And you're wondering, why am I telling you this story? I'll get to it. So I wake up a couple hours later, August, get on the bus. I got blood down my front. Both eyes are black. And I pass out at a transfer point, and I have one more bus to get on. I get on that bus, and now I got a 2 mile walk home. And I know that no one's there. I'm all by myself. But as I'm walking home, this is in Portland, Oregon. As I'm walking over the interstate freeway, there is a square in the sidewalk that I go to. I have business in Portland, Oregon. Now I go 1 week a month. And about every other trip, I will go drive by there just for the sake to stand on this block, this
Yeah.
square in the sidewalk that's
Yeah.
double sized. Because as I stepped on it, beaten, all right, I mean, literally almost to death, a voice. I thought it came out of the fourplex that was right to my right, but it turns out it was a voice, a female voice, right over my shoulder, right here. Swear to God, I've told the story 100 times. And it said, everything's your fault. And I mean, I turned and looked, and I said, "That's now again. My head's not right. It's God. It was Jiminy Cricket. It was my conscience. Something said to me, a female, so much so I thought it came out of the fourplex. Somebody was yelling at me through the window, but they yelled, 'Everything is your fault. If you don't grasp this going forward, you're going to be like everybody else.'" That's all it said. And I was like, I literally answered it back and said, "How can it be my fault? I didn't do anything. And who are you? Who's talking?" So I limp on home. Coincidentally, I have a little nubbin on my nose right here because they broke my nose open, and I held it shut for 3 days, and ultimately it stopped. It stopped popping open.
Your
And
forever reminder of this moment in
of this
time that
moment,
shaped everything.
that's right. So everything's my fault. And so I'd like to say it was a hockey stick and it just changed my life immediately. But I had my older brothers all in jail, and my sisters all got pregnant as teenagers. And I mean, I'm living this life again, hookers and heroin addicts at 17 as a street kid. But I got a different perspective on life. And so as I entered my career and I started working in business, and then I started my own businesses, the everything is your responsibility coming from that horrible example I just gave you changed my life and has been the superpower for me through now. I've bought and sold a dozen businesses, and we've generated 450 odd million dollars in revenue over the last 25, 30 years. So a lot of business in that time, and a lot of ups, big, huge ups, a lot of gigantic downs, big, huge downs. And with that, has come always the perspective that everything that happens to me is my fault. And that's been the basis of my entrepreneurial career.
Wow. Well, and what I hear is you took that message and you turned that into is your responsibility. So that led
Yes.
you to taking radical responsibility for the things that you wanted to see
Yes.
in life. So
Right.
if it was to be, it was up to you, really, at
Yeah,
that
I
point.
mean, and when something happens to you, there's no from my perspective, there's no money to be made in emotion when it comes to business, right? Business, you need to be somewhat detached emotionally because emotional will make decisions and decisions that'll crush you. And so I try to operate it analytically. I always came at it analytically. And so I'll give you an example. I had one time where someone working for me cost me $500,000. Half a
Mhm.
million dollars, right? And again, the program there is, what did I do that allowed her to lose me $500,000? What programs did I not put in place? What things did I not do? What
Yeah.
How did I not train her? What loopholes were there?
Yeah, you
What system
translated
breakdown
it
happened?
back to held a mirror up to yourself as opposed
Correct.
to pointing the finger outward.
Correct. And it's easy to point a finger outward,
Mhm.
especially as entrepreneurs, because you're under so much pressure, and that pressure is very lonely, and there's nobody else that really understands it around you, and it's easy to just turn that outward and start pointing fingers and yelling and screaming at the folks. But there's no value in that. You don't get anything from that. There's no lessons learned. There's nothing but bad feelings, right? People go work somewhere else.
Right.
Whatever the case may be, the value is in being able to take a hold of that lesson I learned taking that beating at 14 years old that said everything is my fault. I then turned it into a superpower because whatever happened to me in my life, regardless of who did it, it's on me.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing, Jerry. So how do you so it sounds like that, not only was a pivotal moment in your trajectory, but it probably also led you, in some ways exactly where you are today. So today, when you wake up in the morning, what fires you up about taking that message, that mess, turning it into a message? How do you translate that into real world results for the people that you help right now?
Well, I think that the reality is business is hard. Business is very, very difficult. And the internet has not done us any favors by making business look easier than it is, to make results seem so all I have to do is this and this and this, and that happens. And the reality is it's very different. And I think that part of the perspective that I have is never forgetting from for me where I come from and how difficult things were when I was young, as opposed to the sales didn't go through, or the business didn't happen, or it's losing money, or it's not making as much, or I failed and I've got to start over again, or what it could be something much more mild, just the vagaries of business as you go through it. But I never lose my perspective about where I come from. And so I always try to teach that to other people, that we've got to give it perspective. I have a picture on my phone of a little kid in Africa, and he was going for this. Is a picture was done in the late '90s, if memory serves, and he was heading for a food bank, and he didn't make it, and he's got a vulture sitting behind him as he's crouched down. He's about 3, 4 years old, and somebody took this picture of him. It was in all of the magazines at the time. I believe it won the Pulitzer. But this little kid he was about 400 yards from the food bank, but he just wasn't making it, and the vulture's waiting for him to die. And I keep that picture all the time because no matter how bad my life
Right.
gets,
Mhm.
as an entrepreneur, I can pull it up on my phone and show it to you. As bad as an entrepreneur, as your life might be as an entrepreneur, for me, keeping perspective, both my own as a kid and then also others, was always a superpower because it gave me that kind of that balance to say, whoa, I'm getting so excited about X, Y, or Z. If I have perspective over here, it'll calm me down a little bit. Maybe I'll deal with that problem differently. Maybe I'll handle that issue in a way that I would not otherwise. Kind of keep you grounded almost, to use a cliche.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. But the having that real world experience of those things that beat you down, that knocked you over, that that forced you to look at life different. There's no replacement for those life moments, right? Like, as much
Right.
as we can hear stories from other people, the fact that you lived through those things, and I know because I've had so many knockdown moments that grit and resiliency kind of became my middle name, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, and I look at those experiences, and to your point, like, there's nothing that replaces the real world experience of getting knocked over and having to get back up. right?
That's right.
Like
Right.
having that intense gratitude and always wanting to be reminded of those moments came as a result of your experience. So
Yes. That
I love that you're able to bring that to other people and share with them a reminder of the fact that if they want to see something happen, they're responsible for it.
Yeah, and I would say that the other part of that too that goes along with it to entrepreneurs in particular is really people chasing success, but entrepreneurs in particular is that we all think, every entrepreneur thinks. I have talked to hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs in my lifetime, and every one of them, we all think that the mistakes that we make, we're the only ones that make them. That we're all on an island by ourselves. And these problems we have are because of this issue that's come at us or this problem that's come at us. And I'm sure I handled that wrong. And I watch the internet and everybody else handles it correctly. And these things that I'm doing, I'm just a failure and a loser because there's no one to talk to. There's no group that you
Yeah.
can go to. Your sister doesn't know anything about being an
Yeah.
entrepreneur.
No
No,
perspective. Yeah.
nobody has any perspective. And so you're left to as an island by yourself. So when you add that every one of those hundreds that I've talked to, for the most part, and I mean this, 90% of them, we all have the same problems. Everybody has the same issues, but it's such a isolating, lonely process being an entrepreneur that you feel like you're by yourself. So if you understand that you're not, so many people just make the same mistakes and the same problems, and we look at the world the same way, combined with then a perspective that gives you kind of a balance and a
Yeah.
grounding, you bring those two things to bear as entrepreneurs. It's half the battle. I mean, we all think it's sales and operations
Right.
and all of those things, but there's this whole part behind being a leader and being
Yeah.
able to withstand what entrepreneurship will throw at you.
Mhm.
That if you have those superpowers, I call them, if you have those superpowers of perspective and understand what it is that you're truly up against, it makes a big difference when you're in battle.
Oh, 100%. No, you said it so well. And don't you think that when you recognize that you share many of those common challenges and problems with other entrepreneurs, it also strips away the stigma? Like it destigmatizes and desilos you so that you don't have to be afraid to talk to other people about your experience because maybe the same challenges I had last week, you had the week before, and we can share these war stories and we can encourage and equip each other on the journey.
Yeah, I started my first business at 28 years old. I had a group come at me and wanted me to lead the operations and the sales side, kind of run the business, and they were going to be the financing behind it. We did $3 million that first year, and I learned a little something. I'd come out of running operations, and I learned a little something about cash flow. I didn't know what that was,
Yeah.
and they ran out of it because I grew the company too quick. I did my job, they didn't do theirs. They fired me. I turned back around, started my own company 17 days later at 29 years old, and that first year we did $4 million. And a guy walked in my office on a cold call, a chairman, a former CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and he had started a peer-to-peer group. I didn't even have any idea what that was. And he said, I want you to come be a part of this peer-to-peer group. And the newspaper had done a story on me, and so he had seen me there, and he said, I want you to come be a part of the peer-to-peer group. I was doing $8 million a year. The company's 2 years old. And I said, I don't have time. And the best sales pitch I ever got, the best sales sentence, I use it today, was you can't afford not to. And I was like, but I'm refereeing basketball games at night while I'm working on this $8 million a year startup 12 hours a day. And I'm having to do that because I'm not making enough money to pay myself. So I got to referee games at night. And I'm talking 5, 6, 7 days a week just to pay the bills. I got a brand new baby at home. I got a new daughter coming. I got a half finished house. And he walks in and he's like, you can't afford not to. And I was like, well, where am I going to find the time? And he said, yeah, you can't afford not to. You can't
Yeah.
afford to
Yeah. Make it
monetarily.
happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
make it happen. And that group, as I sat down in that group, that company, my first 4 years in business, I did 4, 8, 12, and $14 million. So I'm doing $14 million in revenue. I get in that group, I sit down, and for the first 2 years, everybody was my age. Now I'm 56. Everybody was in their 50s. That group was still together. We get together one time a year now. All the guys are in their late 70s and 80s. But here I am in my 50s, and they knew so much. I thought I knew a lot. I had the biggest company. I had the most employees. Newspaper had done a story on me. I mean, all these things were happening. I thought I knew what I was talking about. But when I sat down in that group, I had another epiphany at 28 that told me to shut up and listen. And so I listened to that one, and I shut up and listened, and I paid attention. And I didn't say anything for 2 years. I mean, I just soaked it all in. And what I learned, to your point, was that there were so many things that I wasn't doing that I needed to, but a lot of the things that I wasn't even sure about, these guys weren't sure about either. And they were
Right.
telling me how they went about that and how they got over it and how I could avoid falling in the hole that they had fallen into. That's really, I started a new company recently, the Kronos Group, which is my first peer-to-peer group, just for that reason, because I thought, you know what? I'm gonna come back around and try to do this again the
I
same way.
love
Now
that.
I'm the 56-year-old, right?
Yeah. But
And
if you
now I
could
have all this.
cut some of that dumb tax. I didn't
Yes,
mean to
right.
cut you off, but if you could cut some
No,
of
no,
that
fine.
dumb tax for somebody else and turn that real world experience, just like you sponged it up from those guys, and maybe they were still figuring it out, like we all are,
Yeah,
right? But you can
right.
turn around now and turn that into something actionable, something valuable to someone else. It's phenomenal.
I went on to, like I said, I don't know, I've bought and sold a dozen companies. You know, we've done hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. And that group was instrumental not only in me doing that, but it also played a part in some of the most important lessons. I'll give you one. In 2012, I came off the biggest year I had ever had. I was making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. Business was really good. And I thought, I'm going to buy a competitor. Competitor came to me about buying them. The financials weren't quite right. Right? It wasn't quite there yet. And company was doing about $20 million a year, mine was. And I was like, well, I can absorb. They were doing five and a half, $6 million a year. And I can absorb that and I'll figure out the financials. And the group I was in was like, you're an idiot. This company's got this problem and that problem. And if they can't figure it out, then it's not right. But Teresa, knew everything, right?
Yeah.
Because I was having all this success and my companies were doing great.
But you
That was
also
the
knew that you were a figure it out guy. So you
Yeah,
probably figured,
I
yeah,
also did. That's
yeah,
exactly right. At least I thought so. And that company went on. It probably cost me $6 million, $7 million over 6 years. It was lawsuits and pains in the ass, and it was a nightmare. And I never got back until I got rid of that company to having a six-figure month ever again. So
wow.
there's easily a multi-million dollar mistake, but my group told me not to do it because it's the power of the crowd and the collective group, 6, 8, 10 guys looking at it and going, no, you don't have all the answers. Usually, Jerry, you're in here firing off answer after answer after answer. This one feels too uncomfortable. But me, I was making money hand over fist. I mean, I was printing it like the treasury, right? I know everything, which money will tend to do that when you make it. All of a sudden, I got all the answers. And so the advice that can help you avoid those pitfalls can sometimes also teach you the lesson, even though you still step in the hole,
Oh,
get
true.
back out of it.
It's so true. Well, and I had one of those experiences, Jerry, and I remember thinking it, the stars weren't quite aligned, but because I felt like I was so resilient and resourceful, I felt like, well, even though it's not quite right, to your point, I can figure it out.
Yeah.
Sometimes though, the recovery from those mistakes is way more painful than you believe it's going to be. And to your point, that mistake probably cost me 6 years of setback,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, I look at those experiences as like the real world MBA. Like you
Hmm.
can, again, there's nothing that replaces experiential knowledge. So, no, would you do it again that way? It doesn't sound like you'd do it again. I wouldn't
No,
do it again that way.
no. Right.
But didn't you take something from it that you couldn't have gotten from anything else?
Yeah, I mean, you can't. I've never looked at, I always talk about, for me, it's street smarts and common sense. And I've
Yeah.
never looked at a resume. I don't know where any of the 10,000 people who've worked for me, I have no idea where any of them went to school. I couldn't tell you what they achieved on the education side. Because when I was 21 years old, I took a job working for a courier company and I drove for about 6 months and the dispatcher was horrible. And I went to the owner and I said, hey, I want to dispatch, and I'm assuming you're paying that girl $40,000 a year. And she said, yeah, but she's been here a long time. I said, listen, hear my deal. I'll do it for $10 an hour. I think I can do a better job than she can. I'll do it for $10 an hour for 6 months. But at the end of 6 months, if I do a good job, you pay me what you're paying her. Now, this job was hundreds of phone calls a day. I had a foot pedal where I would call out to drivers and I had all of these orders and it was just 10 hours of complete madness, right? So to think to do this and for $10 an hour was crazy. But again, street smarts, I had it in mass and common sense. And so I knew I could do a better job. So I was willing to bet on myself. And the only way I was going to get that job is if I made her a deal too good to pass up. It turns
Right.
out then over the next 3 to 5 years, I grew that company to $5 million, running all the operations. At the time, she was doing about 900,000. We had about 30 employees. We had about 130 employees when I quit and went and started my own. And she ended up paying me 45,000, which I got to say, Theresa, I had never earned more than $10 an hour
Oh, and that was like
up
the day
until
you
that
got
point.
that sandwich. You connected food with money, and you were like,
See
"Oh,
it?
wait a minute, this is all mine."
That's right.
5,000.
That's exactly right. And so when the opportunity came, you that common sense kicks in, that street smart kicks in. There
Yeah.
is no school in the world that could have taught me to do that. And from that, then I went and started. I took up that offer at 28. That company went belly up. 29, I started my own company. 17 days after they fired me, I don't know if I told that story. 17 days later, after the first, they fired me
Yeah.
on my anniversary, and then 17 days later, I started my own by going to my biggest customers and telling them I was moving again. And they're like, "Oh God, Jerry, okay." But I said, "No, I'm not done. I need you to prepay me. I don't have any money." Because I learned about this thing called cash flow. And I got 6 for 6 banks and title companies to prepay me to start a new transportation company, which I did 17 days later. And by 33, I was a millionaire. And now
Wow.
I've owned everything: car washes, gas stations, convenience stores, investment companies, woodworking, you name it. I build houses, developments. I mean, industrial. I've done it all, and it all starts from me telling that woman I will
Right.
do that job for $10 an hour for 6 months. This crazy job for
Well,
ten
that's what
dollars.
I was just gonna say. I picked up on something that you said there, Jerry, that you bet on yourself. And
Yes.
when you turned around 17 days after you got fired and you opened your own shop and you took a bet on yourself because you knew that you had the initiative, you had the hard work, you had the street smarts, you had the common sense, and that you were gonna figure it out. And so when you bet on yourself, you were willing to take a massive amount of initiative, right? To take those leaps of faith and those courage, and then put your effort, where your words were. Like, okay, I'm
Yes.
gonna do it, but then you put your effort behind it to back it up. And it seems to me you did that over and over and over again to get where you are today.
And those things stack on top of each other. So you do
Right.
them, go back to, cutting holes in our coats to figure out the best way
Yep.
to steal money, right? Or steal food from the grocery store when you're starving. Every one of those kind of just grew on top of each other, getting that job at 11 years old. And then
Yep.
I would always leave. I left that job at 12 because IHOP offered me 50 cents more. And so I went to work Saturday, and I got to work Saturday and Sunday at 6 o'clock in the morning at International House of Pancakes, hiring me as a 12-year-old in 1980, whatever year that was that I was 12 years old, 1981. Every job, I just went to a new job because they would pay me more money and more money and more
Yeah.
money. And so I kind of figured that program out to where I was then betting on myself at 22 years old to get that
Yep.
job. And then at 28 years old, I said, okay, I'm going to do it again.
Everything in it.
Right,
Yep.
right. I would not
And,
have been able to do getting fired, starting that company on my 1 year
no.
anniversary and 17 days later starting up. I would not have been able to do that 2 years earlier. I had
Right.
to go through that
Yep.
process in order to have the skills. And what no
Yep.
school going to teach me the skills that I needed, but I wouldn't have had the wherewithal to accept those skills and put them into work if I hadn't had, I think, the childhood that I grew up with and kind of the street smarts along with that common sense that I got to keep myself out of trouble, that you're able to put into place that epiphany that everything is my fault, everything is my responsibility. You can see how that all comes together now at
Yeah.
28 and then at 29, and then away you go.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, and as you up leveled step by step and continued to bet on yourself, continued to double down on that bet and take that initiative, knowing that ultimately it was your responsibility, you stayed on that trajectory of momentum and progress. So
Yes.
what is it now, Jerry, for you when you look at forward, like the challenges and the things you're facing in the marketplace now? Because you strike me as a guy that's not letting any grass grow under his feet. Like
No.
you got a horizon in front of you. So what's in
Yeah.
front of you now? What's the exciting next chapter for
Well,
Jerry coming up?
I'll tell you what. So I still have that transportation company that I started all those years ago, and so
Uh,
it's coming up on its 30th year, and so that's great, and I'm operating that, and then I have a development, a 36 lot subdivision. I own a bunch of other lots and things like that, so I have that to build, and then I'll build the houses on top of that development, and I still have that going on. But I just started, and this is the best part because this is really difficult. I talked about the Kronos Group earlier, this company that I just started, a peer to peer group. That's the first company of all of the business I've done, all of those millions of dollars that I'm doing out of passion. So I have told people forever, not a single, I've never made a dollar off anything I'm passionate about. I work passionately, but my tagline is always opportunities are everywhere. You got to go get them. And so if I found an opportunity as we just went through, I made money. And if I could buy gas stations or all these other things that I did, I saw an opportunity. I wasn't mad about real estate. I'm not crazy about gas stations. I don't love car
right.
washes, right?
Yeah,
But
you
there
were
are
crazy
means.
about the opportunity.
That's right. And then I work passionately on those opportunities so that then I can go follow my passions with my family and my children and whatever the things that my wife and I want to do. And so, in that context, I have always just used my passion for work and my drive to build these companies that aren't necessarily anything I love doing, but I'm just really good at making money from this thing, right? If I figure out, I tell people all the time, figure out something that you're good at that you can sell at a profit. Not that you love, that you're good at, and then take the money and go do what you love. And so this peer-to-peer group for me, the Kronos Group, is the first time I've ever done anything that I'm passionate about, which is I love helping businesses. And I have been helping businesses for free for years and years and years. And finally, I get frustrated, and my group that I get together with every year beat me up at the beginning of the year, last year, because they said, you're frustrated because you're not charging. And I never felt like I needed to charge, and that it's just a labor of love, and I want to help. But this one, I said, okay, I'm going to make a real business out of it. I'm going to do a peer-to-peer group just like the one that I was in that was so instrumental for me. I think I have a lot to offer. I'm going to put that together. And so I've done that with a couple of other guys, and we are just breaking that out. And it is the most wonderfully frustrating, anxious, anxiety ridden thing I have ever done. I'm trying to do it online. I don't understand how that game's played, right? My whole world's been kind of in the service sector, as I've explained, from some of these businesses. And so as I'm putting this together, this first group, and I'm out trying to build momentum for it, I'm learning lessons. I'm watching more videos about how SEO works and how to get the X program to do what you want it to do and all of these things. And I know nothing about it. I'm relying on my 32-year-old nephew, who's fantastic, used to work in New York City on all of these things. And so I got to ask him, and kind of those things I don't know. I never worry about asking questions. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm just a sponge. I just want to soak it all up. But it's hard and it's frustrating in a way that reminds me of what life was like 30 years ago. And
Yeah.
I always tell people, live in the uncomfortable. And I am absolutely living in the uncomfortable. And I mean that when I say it, but I also mean it when I say I'm loving every single minute of it, because I've never felt more alive today at 56 years old in my entire life. It's just the greatest thing ever. And I have no idea. I know how to run the group. I know how to give advice.
Yeah.
I know how to talk business. I know how to help people and
Yeah.
do all those things. I don't know how to get people in the door, right?
Right. The
Using
marketing
the
bridge to have
marketing,
for the
yeah,
right
using the new mediums.
conversation.
Right, that's
Well, and
right.
that
So I'm having
marketing
a great
game
time
has,
with it.
yeah, and it's changed so much, to your point. It's changed
Yeah.
so much over the years. And, the things that it took to build the transportation group are probably not the same market. It's not the same
No,
tactics that you would
no,
use,
that's right.
in this. But I love you're taking the same skill set, the muscle set, right? First, it was the mindset piece of, well, I'm responsible for me. And so then I'm going to figure it out. And so then betting on yourself, taking the leap of faith, putting the passion into something that, is now going to be the business,
Right.
that you're channeling, and then just doubling down on the effort to learn it and live in the uncomfortable.
That's it.
So that same muscle set, that same mindset that you applied all along the journey, you're now applying to this new thing. And I have a feeling that in the process, Jerry, you're going to help a whole lot of business owners.
I hope so. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's really my passion, which again for me is being able to do something that I'm passionate about. Is a really, it's a unique experience. Again, I don't have it. I'm just putting the first group together, and I'm really looking forward to that
I love
happening.
it.
And in the meantime, I'm just learning exponentially. Again, watching videos on things I never thought I would watch videos, reading articles on things I never thought I would ever need to worry about. But in that frustration is a whole lot of fun.
Oh, that's amazing. So,
Yeah.
several of our listeners today might be business owners that want to know how to get a hold of you or how to get a hold of the Kronos Group and what these groups are that you're putting together in this peer-to-peer advisory group. So tell our listeners, how would they find out about this if they were interested, and what kinds of businesses are you interested in serving in this group? Who's a good fit for the Kronos Group and what you're doing, and how would they find out more about it, Jerry?
Fantastic question. Let's go to the second question first, which is who fits? Everybody. So it is not a group for if you make glass, right? It's not a group to go join a group that just from glass makers. And here's why. In my experience, business is business, right? So the basics of business work across all business. Now, there are some different things about how you do it operationally, but again, at the baseline, experience is experience and business is business. And so a good, healthy group like the one that I spent 25 years in was made up of people who did everything, pom-pom makers to literally glass makers to real
And
estate
actually, you
guys
get
to
to learn from each other if you
banks and
cross-pollinate
correct.
ideas from different industries, right?
I all as I explained earlier, all that revenue I did was because this group helped me understand what I didn't know and helped me avoid pitfalls and making mistakes and give good advice. Not because they read it somewhere, but because they had lived it. And so you get a board back to almost a board that everyone operates as that group, almost like what we talked about, because it's so lonely being an entrepreneur. And then you sit down and you hear that other people have all of these problems. Maybe it was 10 years ago, maybe it was 15 years ago, but they hear, oh, I have that problem. What'd you do about it? And then you get this advice on how to deal with this problem. So not only do you hear that other people have the same problem, but then you also get actionable advice on how to fix it. And this is my thing about mastermind groups. I'm kind of negative on them. I've gone to all of these seminars. I've heard all of the big guys do their things, and I've never really come away from any of them going, oh, that's actionable advice that I can use Monday morning, right? I want to help at a peer to peer level. I want to help on the ground so that the person who comes to my group sits through and gives their half an hour, talks about the things that they have going on and gets actionable advice, how to make payroll, how to get financing, how to buy a building, how to find construction, where to get employees, sales, whatever it is, actionable advice from 8 to 10 other operators who have already done that or been there or dealt with that same problem. So that is the value that helped me drive my companies to all of those millions of dollars that I got from those guys. That's what I want to pass along to everybody else. And I'm doing that via the Kronos Group. the Kronos, Kronos Group. Kronos was the god of time. And I thought, if I'm putting together something for entrepreneurs, it seems to me that the god of time just makes all the sense in the world because, who has less time than entrepreneurs? And so the Kronos Group, you can go to the website, thekronosgroup.org. Everything is there. And here's what I want people to hear. I love conversations. So if you want to reach out in any industry and you want to have a conversation with me, I have done hundreds of these for free. I won't sell you anything. If you want to call and talk to me about the Kronos Group and maybe how it's going to be a fit, that's great. If you just like to sit and talk about the company and what it is, that's great. But I'm going to tell you the advice that I got from this Fortune 500 CEO who came and sat down and he said, you can't afford not to. And he was right. When I said that, he is absolutely right. And any company that would come in and you're feeling all alone, the first question I'm going to ask you is, what can I help you with? What's the real problem? And everyone has a real problem. And if I don't know the answer, I can direct you to somebody who will give you the answer, who will help you with the answer. And typically a group like this, it'll just skyrocket your operations, your sales across the board. The studies are pretty clear about it. But from my own practical knowledge, I went on to do, like I said, north of $450 million in revenue starting from scratch. My first order was $12. And a large part of that is because I got into this thing I had never heard of, this peer-to-peer group. So the kronosgroup.org, go to jerrybrazie.com. You can find out everything you want about me there. But kronosgroup.org, hit the button, schedule a time. I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody.
Wow, that's fantastic, Jerry. Well, and I think you're exactly right. I don't think if there's people out there that are listening and they know that they know that they know that they know they got to get out of their own way and do something
Yes.
different to get different results. And I think you're spot on. I don't think they can afford not to.
Right. I was a hot kid that knew everything and had gone through this life and was doing millions of dollars. And this old man walks in and says, you need to join my group and you can't afford not to, time wise or money wise. And I thought he was crazy. And there's no truer thing in the world than that group. I would not be sitting here in front of you had I not joined that group. That's how valuable it is. I get that that's a great sales tactic for me to use as I'm trying to grow my group here 30 years later. But I'm telling you, it's 100% true.
Well, and I can tell it comes from the heart. And I've been a part of peer-to-peer groups. I believe in coaching and mentoring. It's like Crisco on the tracks.
Yes.
Here's the thing, it was Einstein who said you can't solve a problem with the same energy that created it.
Yeah,
And
that's
this
yes.
kind of group peer-to-peer concept that you're talking about that you learned so much from and carried forward, this is what Henry Ford and Rockefeller and these guys used to do. They used to get together on these camping trips and share, have a think tank, right?
Right.
They and a combined group of wisdom. So I love that you're harnessing the power of this to help business owners grow. Thank you so much, Jerry. And I know that anybody that comes to have a conversation is going to walk away a better business owner as a result. So
I appreciate that. And let me add one more thing if I can. And I didn't, when I was describing the business, if you're $1 million or you're $20 million, you small guys, you're crazy if you think that it's not for you because Jerry's done all of this big business. I'm struggling with the same problems in my companies today. I operate 2 7-figure businesses right now, and I struggle with the same problems today that anybody else struggles in their businesses. So I'm not some guru that read a book and has all of this. I'm here to help you on the ground because I'm doing the same thing. So I don't want, if it's $1 million or $10 million, come, let's have a conversation. No one is ruled out.
That's such a great point. And, I've talked to a lot of business owners who are 10, 15, $20 million, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're running like $20 million companies. Some of those same shops, revenue is not indicative of systems.
Right.
And some of those same shops are running like mom and pop, organizations. And the reality of it is that only 6% of small businesses in America get to 7 figures, Jerry. So
Yeah, it's
kudos
really
to you for helping people get over those thresholds. And I don't think anybody would choose to pay the dumb tax that we've paid as entrepreneurs along our journey. So if
so
you can
true.
help some of those people cut some of that dumb tax, I'm all for it. And I'll be sending people your way to learn more as well.
I appreciate it very much. You know what the difference is between a 7-figure company and an 8-figure company? A zero.
A zero.
That's
Yeah.
it.
You're
zero.
absolutely right. And
Yeah.
sometimes to get to that zero, you just got to get in a different headspace. You got to get out of your own way. And so I think there's so much power and wisdom in linking arms with other people that can help you do that.
I
So,
agree. I
yeah.
appreciate you having me on, Theresa. Thank you very much.
Oh my gosh, you're amazing, Jerry. I can't wait for people to learn more about the Kronos Group. I myself am going to learn more about the Kronos Group as I continue my journey with you. So thank you so much. And I encourage our listeners to check it out. And, this journey of momentum, this, stay in motion, get in motion, stay in motion. You're obviously a guy of a lot of motion. And, I applaud you for your one step at a time chutzpah and feet on the street. It's a phenomenal results you've been able to create.
I'm taking a giant bite out of life, and they're going to have to force me into the grave.
Woo! I love
That's
it.
right.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jerry. Well, have a fantastic day. And to all our listeners out there, go to the kronosgroup.org and check it out because there just might be, some encouragement on the journey that you need to take your business to that next level. So appreciate you, Jerry.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks again so much for tuning into the Momentum Podcast. I truly appreciate you being here. If you're a founder or entrepreneur with a story to share and you're in the growth phase of your business, I'd love to hear from you. Visit podcast.diamond-group.co to apply to be a guest. Again, that's podcast.diamond-group.co to be a guest. If this episode helped you, inspired you, or made you think differently, please share it, leave a review, or hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Remember, my mission is to spotlight stories and strategies that help purpose-driven business owners grow with clarity, confidence, and intention. To learn more about the Diamond Group, you can go to diamond-group.co. I'm Theresa Bassett. Remember that I'm with you and for you. Onward and upward. I'll see you next time.